Welcome back, everybody. We're Garden State Passers, and we're actually all three members now Passers. It's myself, John, fellow expert Sean, and then we have Grandmaster Mac Molner is right above me. The round should be either just starting or about to start, so I'm going to do the usual before the rounds and go see if I could go find the games. Oh, and
All
actually,
right.
yes, we already have games in both sections, so let me get those in real quick.
Sweet. Exciting stuff.
Yeah, can't wait to see these final games.
Yeah.
Well, this is obviously very different than what I was going to say. Does this bring back any memories of like playing some youth tournaments? But I mean, this is completely different, of course. But
Yeah, we never did it online. I mean, like
yeah,
certainly some similarities and some overlap, and chess is chess to some degree and all that. But even just like having qualifiers, having all this, it's a whole different story here.
yeah, it becomes like more competitive and more competitive each year.
So
Some great chess players here.
definitely. I was remembering when we were talking yesterday a little bit about just kind of comparing the ratings. I was remembering when we were in ninth grade that Fabiano played up 4 grades and he was the top seed at the time. And he was still only 2170 or 2180 or something like that. Meanwhile, now they are a lot higher. What I neglected to say yesterday is it's not like we didn't have any ninth graders that were higher than that because Hikaru didn't play that section that year and he was our grade. But still, like even just 1 grade above or 1 grade below, it was similar numbers, at that point. And yeah, nothing like 24, 25, like multiple 24, 25, like titled players. It's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. I remember. What were you saying?
I was just saying crazy and impressive. What were you gonna say?
Absolutely. No, I remember Hikaru becoming a master around the age of 10 back when we were younger, and that was just so groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And I remember playing him actually when I was at the Nationals. I think it might have been in 6th grade, and I was a 1500 or something at the time. He was 2300.
Oh.
It was just such a massive difference. But now it seems like that's not that uncommon, like you were saying. But
well, I remember that one because that was K6, and the three of us were the only people that were 5-0 after that round. That was in Dallas, Texas. That was the first year UTD gave a scholarship. I think it was the first year UTD gave a scholarship to like somebody that young for like their program. Now we just did the Final Four recently, and now it's like all these colleges have all these different impressive programs too, and they were kind of like the forerunners for that. Definitely interesting.
Have you seen any games this week or this weekend that have kind of really stuck out? I've only been able to see some of the games today, but
definitely some. So the Merrick Who was on board for the last round, and I did note that he played the Dragon one game and the King's Indian another game. So I was kind of enjoying watching.
Yeah, he's also a Jersey player.
Nice.
Yeah. Since we're the Garden State Passers, gotta mention our fellow.
I was rooting
baseman
for him a little bit when I saw some of his opening choices already. It does seem like he didn't get the result this tournament that he wanted, but I'm sure he will have other impressive results in the future. There was one Dragon game that I did particularly enjoy that did stick out a bit. Even the King's Indian one that went the other way, it was a very interesting one that I'm going to take another look at later, I think. We do have games going right now. What do you want to
say? So we have games in. Just a quick shout out to Chad again. Thanks for coming back. Somebody just had a question. Will 4.5 qualify? I'd say you're definitely in contention. I'm not sure exactly what the breakoff is going to be, but I just recommend trying to win your last game. A draw might not be enough, but a win might get you in that territory. And another quick shout out in the K through 9 section, the top board there, I think, are the only 2 people that are on 7-0. So that could go either way. One might try to really push it just to be an out and out first place, but again, this is qualifying, so I could also see a calm draw happening because they both have pretty much guaranteed your spots. So
yeah, even if they lose, they still qualify already, right? So probably might as well just play it out and win, I would think. But
yeah, like I wouldn't probably use if I had special prep in my repertoire, I wouldn't use it for this, but I would definitely look to have a fun win. I would say I would look for a brilliancy, and if I lose, as long as it's a brilliancy.
There you go.
swing for the fences.
Pretty much.
Right.
So we are live with all our games, so we can start.
Could you guys maybe explain a little bit more on how you're qualifying? Just I mean, maybe that's just a question everyone else knows the answer to, but
I was gonna say I'm not 100% off the top of my head what the number is. We do have a command in chat for qualifying as well, so people can refer to that. But for the gist of it, it's either the top 10 or 15% will advance, but there is like certain breakoffs. Like I think the maximum that will be allowed to advance would be 64, but that's if it had a huge thing. I think it's more around the 32 to 35 people are advancing for the K through 12 section, and it's around like 40 or so for the K through 9 section.
Right.
So it's something like that. I did add a command in chat qualifying, so people can check the official rule book there. US Chess has it up there.
Yeah, definitely want to make sure. Well, there is a delay on some of this, right? But
No, all these games should be pretty much live now. But
Okay,
for
great.
everybody in chat, if you're playing, the game is just try to win this round. If you're unsure if you qualify or not, win would give you a better chance of doing it. So good luck. As I said, there's no real rule against watching Twitch, but we're purposely trying not to, like with viewer games, we're not going to be doing at this point. We'll just be commenting on the top board players who, honestly, they'd be better off just focusing on their own games than trying to get advice from like these chuckleheads here.
yeah, we can freely comment on the games. That's fine.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of a delay too between what we're streaming and what the games are. So,
Okay, great. Do you mind if I bring up one of the games?
Oh yeah, we can start bringing up games.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see all the oh my goodness. Wow. Actually, I have to bring up this game first. This is let me bring this one over to the board here. So just on a personal note here, this person Quinn, he's a student from Arizona. He was actually probably my first private student, maybe I don't know,
cool.
10 something years ago. But yeah, he's a great player. Exciting to see him playing the tournament still. So he seems like he's having a good run of it. We could start here with the opening real quick, and yeah, so he played the semi-Slav here, and yeah, one of the main ideas here in the semi-Slav is that black's going to be angling for some queenside counterplay. So they're usually playing things like b5, then trying to put the bishop on this diagonal, and eventually, if they can keep their queenside stable enough, sometimes by playing maybe a6. I know there's a lot of arrows here, but eventually they're aiming to play something like c5, hoping to activate the bishop and kind of have it piercing across the center. And when this is achieved, black gets really good counterplay in the center. Their pieces are very active, and yeah, it can lead to very good play. And in the meantime, white will often hope to make things kind of happen in the center here, or they can also play to maybe restrict some of black's queenside advances, or put some pressure on the queen side so they're not able to push their pawns up quite so easily. So it's an interesting kind of counterbalance of ideas here. And yeah, I'm not totally sure if this is like a regular response here with b4, but my first thought is maybe it's not so bad for white to have their knight on a4. It helps to prevent the c5 break like we've been talking about. So Quinn plays knight d7 here, is setting up c5 maybe, and yeah, it looks. I think it's still pretty balanced. Looks like an interesting opening. Any other games that are jumping out to you guys?
I was looking at the one on board 2 over there where Nico Chasen is playing black against Konstantin Skyper. Is that a Benko? Did start as a Benko? It looks like
yeah. Why don't we could quickly go through this through the start here? Okay, so actually he played like a different Benko kind of. I used to play the Benko, and I've not seen people leave the pawns on these squares for so long. Seems like both sides are kind of playing like chicken to have them take the pawn or not. But
first.
yeah. So yeah, eventually it looks like it just reaches a typical position here. And then this rook b1 line is really, for a long time, it's been considered one of the most critical ways of playing. And the idea is basically to just take the rook off this long diagonal, because white in general would like to be able to play something like b3 here, bishop b2, and then with the bishop here, it helps counter off some of black's pressure on that long diagonal. And also it just can help control some extra squares on the queen side. But that's not going to be possible, because if black plays b3, or, I mean, if white plays b3, there's maybe knight takes pawn, or there's also knight e4 type of ideas, which maybe this technically wins more material. Maybe not. They're both good. So either way, they're just bearing down a lot of pressure on this diagonal here, and it's going to win some material for black. So it's best if white basically just prevents this altogether and makes sure that they play rook b1, just permanently ending all possible pins and discovered attacks on this diagonal. And then the plan is to play b3, bishop b2, and just slowly stabilize the queen side and expand or just limit black's counterplay. But the game just took a really interesting turn here. So usually black's play in the Benko just really focuses on the queen side, and even white is mainly looking to improve their situation on that part of the board.
I saw some of those moves happen quickly too. Like when the queen went over to g4, I saw Nico did that like right after the white side attack. It looked like, I don't know, it looked like yeah, I was interested to hear what you were going to say about this, because I knew you played the Benko, and I was surprised by what was happening so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so there is this possibility that in this kind of position, like black is kind of signaling they might be willing to accept a repetition here with like the queen going back and forth and the bishop returning to d2. Okay. But so maybe white feels kind of more psychological emphasis for them to try to play for a win, because they're playing with the white pieces here, and if they don't want to repeat moves, they need to kind of take some forward-minded action. So they play knight g5 here, I think, to help cover this pawn, which is under attack a couple times. But it ends up sending the knight out to this kind of unusual square on h3, as far as I am aware. I don't know if this is still some kind of theory. I don't think it is. I think that if like one of the most common moves for white to do to help protect that pawn with their knight is to go knight h4. But then, yeah, this queen maneuver here is kind of surprising. And all of a sudden, black's focus is now on the king side. They're going to still have these rooks, which are well placed on the queen side and kind of bearing down with some pressure. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if in the upcoming moves, if black plays something like bishop c8 and just tries to just completely switch directions here, which is really interesting. And then,
yeah, this is interesting.
A little background, Nico at this point, he's at 6 points. We had 2 draws, so really good tournament for him. And then his opponent, Constantine, looks to be from New Jersey, and I think they might be a little bit underrated since their last over-the-board tournament was 2 years ago. So this is where we're saying one thing with online play, like that, and this whole quarantine and everything, that there's some people that probably have somewhat of a lower rating than they actually play.
For sure.
So he had 2 years to probably just get better at chess, but no place to really prove it. And so far, looks like they've been proving it with a 6.5 out of 7. So nothing.
Yeah, that's an outstanding score.
Yeah. But both of them are in good spots to look to make it to the June tournament.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, in this particular game, it does look like black's in good shape here. Just I think the weakness here on h3 is kind of telling. This could be a lot of pressure here. Actually, there's still been a lot of action, I think, in the game, so we could kind of head over to the main position here. But yeah, it's a hard position to look at and then just like understand, because there's a lot happening.
Definitely is. Should we hop to the K-9 for a moment?
Sure.
Sure.
I'm sure there'll be more fireworks in that Nico game that we could get back
Yeah.
to. So it looks like it's just quickly looking at it, except for the second board. The rest of them look like it's a little bit more calmer of games. That second one looks like it's starting to get wild.
Yeah, I was looking at the second one myself over there.
Are you talking about the game with Terry Luo?
Yeah.
Yeah, Terry versus Leonard.
Yeah, so this was a Catalan. Yeah, I think this is like a topical variation here. This knight takes d5 move, I think, might be like a recently recommended, if I'm not mistaken, maybe recommended in a Chessable course recently.
I
think
saw
it's
there was something out on the Catalan recently.
Yeah, you got to stay up to date on the Chessable
For sure.
material, but yeah, they have it also they have a course for white and some ideas with black, but yeah, it looks like actually this seems to be going decently for black here. It looks like if nothing, well, in general here after b5, black has a really sound pawn structure. So I don't know if the question is whether or not white's going to be able to just capture this pawn and hold on to the material here. If not, then black has a nice pawn structure and is doing pretty decently. But it looks like in the game, Terry took the pawn on b5. Seems like it has to be a critical choice. And yeah, the question here is just, yeah, can white hold on to this extra pawn? Their queen side's a bit undeveloped. Black's got some decent activity here, and yeah, actually, I think black's probably doing fairly well here. I think including a move like knight b6 makes a lot of sense here. You could do an in-between move before capturing this bishop on b5. Let's see. So we could do something like knight b6. The queen's going to have to move somewhere. Let's just say here, because I don't think it's going to make much of a difference either way. Black could trade, for instance, and then because the knight's not a d7 anymore, and due to this in-between move, you could potentially capture here. And yeah, just looking at the quality of the pieces, I don't see any reason why black's not just absolutely completely fine here. It looks like they're bordering on maybe a slight advantage.
Oh, and it looks like they did play the in-between move.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Looks like a great move. So yeah, going to the game here, yeah, they play knight b6, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it continues along what we're just seeing, but something like this where yeah, just black's got just nearly completely active pieces, something like, I would expect white to play knight c3, bring a piece out, and then maybe something like rook d8 is an option, knight c4, putting some extra pressure on some of these kind of tender pieces on the queen side. It looks like black can kind of look towards the later future with some confidence here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is definitely something that they've worked over with the coach coming into this event. Because it definitely was like a little sharp early on, and now it's probably like a position like, these are the things you're looking for, and
everything goes exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Just right.
Oh, quick shout out to Blank for the follow as well. And yep, so we got to the same position, slightly different. It went back to queen b3, bishop takes, queen takes.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it seems like we have a sense of how this might continue. I'm looking around at some of the other games, and Sean, I know you have the King's Indian near and dear to your heart. It looks like we have at least a King's Indian structure here. I don't think it's not the same, but
no, I was noticing that too. It doesn't look like it started as a King's Indian, but definitely some overlap there.
Yeah, it looks like happening. Well, I try to take a look here.
Remember, you're the resident grandmaster. So.
Everything I say has to be correct. Just no room for ever.
Good stockfish real quick.
No, it looks like black has some good counterplay. It's just interesting. I remember I was I think at some kind of like just I was eating a meal with an international master, Raja Panjwani, and several other people, and he's been, or at the time he was a King's Indian player for his whole life, and he he said something I thought was funny where white sits on their left part of their chair and they just look only at their left part of the board. Like white just only focuses on the queen side. Black sits on their left side of the chair, only looking at the king side. And it's like they ignore each other and they just only play where they're looking at. And it kind of reminds me of this. You know, black's got this giant pawn chain pointed towards the king side here, and yeah, a lot of space and potential attacking potential here. So yeah, I think maybe in the upcoming moves, black could maybe try to take on f3, put a knight on g4, which is going to be setting up some attacking chances. Maybe even knight h5 to g3 is sometimes an option. Looks to me like probably black has maybe the better chances here, just because I don't see anything super dangerous from white's point of view that they're able to set up here. They're mainly just playing to weaken the queen side and hopefully maybe create some weakness to attack something like, let's say, trading. Then after these pawns get traded, to keep working on attacking the d6 pawn. But the nice thing for black in these positions is that even if something goes wrong and you lose your pawn, at least you're playing for a mate. So if your opponent makes a mistake, it can be really costly.
Definitely.
So, yeah, it seems to be like, I think black's in some good shape here. You're a King's Indian player. Anything jump out at you, Sean? Or
Yeah, I mean, similar stuff. We were talking earlier in a King's Indian game about similar stuff about playing on the side of the board the pawns are facing, and so since it's so locked, I like that Roger quote though. That was funny. I was feeling like it seemed a little bit like, I don't know, some King's Indian positions like, okay, I already see the checkmate. We're gonna work back from there. Maybe they can do something, maybe not. But like, it's like here it feels a little bit like things have simplified a little bit. I was thinking white's going to be trying to just take here and try and attack the pawn chain at the bottom of it, right? So that'll be d6 after the trade. And then it felt a little bit like if white takes their pieces a little bit too far up there, though, that like, there are mating threats here. At the same time, if it's black's turn here,
I think we did.
I don't know. I'd rather have like the rook. I don't know. I was like looking to get like the rook to f7, like those types of ideas. But it feels a little bit slow here. Rook a7 makes some sense, I think.
Yeah, rook a7 and rook a1. But it seems like not the best indication of this working out for black if they're kind of worried about their keeping their queen side afloat.
Yeah, and it does feel like there's not a clear way to make a huge amount of progress over here that I'm looking at least immediately, whereas white's moves seem a little clearer, maybe, at this moment. On the other hand, it's easy to imagine white getting a little too excited on the queen side, and I don't know. I mean, there's still a weak king with a lot of pieces kind of ready to go if things do change.
Yeah, if the rooks end up getting traded here, let's say something like this happens, I'm wondering if maybe black's attack is just losing like a little bit of steam as each piece gets traded here.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Then already a couple
maybe
come off.
Maybe have something like queen g6. But it's not quite as decisive as I was thinking originally. Maybe still something like knight g4 to here could be interesting too. But yeah, nothing overwhelming. It seems like it would be interesting to see how this continues here. So
definitely. Good question in chat. Somebody had asked about the UFC ratings when they're going to take effect after this tournament, and I'm not 100% certain on it. I think it might be within a day or two, but they might also wait until after the fair play analysis. Once again, that's the 2 to 3 week buffer that ICC will analyze all the games and make sure that it corresponds to the level of play that the person should be playing. So
yeah, it should take a few weeks, I think, right? With the Team East tournament, that's how it was, right? It didn't affect the ratings until everything got confirmed, and there was like a preliminary announcement of maybe what the results were, but pending final review.
Sorry for my bird saying hi, but yes, so I would expect within 3 weeks it would definitely should be affected.
Yeah, that sounds right.
It makes more sense to wait until after everything is certified, instead of putting a rating out there, wait 2-3 weeks if something happens, and then have to change it. So
Definitely.
back to the games now because we have a lot of action.
Sure. One thing that was jumping out to me, which I just thought was interesting, was that according to what I'm seeing here, we were just looking at Gus Huston's game previously against Jason Liu, and yeah, he had a nice win in that round. And here, well, what I find interesting that it still looks like it's just right in the opening here, but according to the time situation, he's got about 3 minutes left, and he's playing the white pieces here. So I don't
That
know.
might be inaccurate then.
Yeah.
What do you think, John?
Here, let me just refresh the overlay real quick.
And also, I thought.
Okay, yeah. If you refresh the page, it should have accurate time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think these two may be teammates also.
I wonder if there might have been a result there as well. That just didn't pull it in. Because again, a draw is perfectly fine for both of them.
Yeah,
Especially
okay.
if they're teammates and both already are made it. It seems like fair enough.
Yeah, that definitely would make some sense.
They
I was wondering what was
still
going on
playing
there.
though.
Okay. Well,
take the practice.
yeah, they're both great players. It'd be interesting to see how this starts to develop. But time situation's curious.
You guys want to check back on Nico Chasen's game, which has progressed a lot?
Oh wow, yeah, it really has. So we were kind of like on the brink of this nice kingside play earlier, and then we're getting this super complicated middle game. But the situation's completely changed, and now it looks like the game has really resolved itself down to this end game. So it's kind of amazing how many exchanges were able to just take place here. But finally, when the dust is settled, it looks like white is in very good shape here.
Yeah,
they have
those two passed pawns.
Yeah, absolutely. Their king side safe. There's not enough material here probably to set up a checkmate for black. Yeah, it'd be interesting maybe for white just to consider something like king h2, try to trade queens. I think pretty much any endgame here would be a slam dunk for white here. They could just eliminate the queens, just rid them off of the board. There's no real risk anymore, and the pass pawns will make their presence felt. There was another interesting game which we haven't taken a look at, which I thought we could quickly just bring over here. So this one was in an opening we don't see a lot. This one's between Vincent Say versus Daniel Levkov. They're both pretty highly rated, strong players, and they were featuring a Dutch defense, and they end up playing one of the main lines.
I'm sorry. While you're
Sure.
doing that, was there a result in the chasing game?
Oh, in the chasing game?
It just looks like the clocks are moving.
Then if the clock stopped moving, then that probably means that yes, game to an end.
Okay.
Well, okay.
Do you want to have a quick look? Okay. I'm wondering if maybe black resigned then?
Yes,
Not sure.
black resigned.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, Constantine he had a fantastic tournament.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, 2 years of no over-the-board play, that rating is probably a little bit, especially at the Scholastic level, where you could climb up the ratings very quickly.
Yeah, definitely. All
right,
sorry,
so
Mac, you want to go back to what you were saying?
Yeah, sure. So we're just seeing this game between Vincent Say and Daniel Levkov, and yeah, it features an open you don't see much. And so they're playing the Dutch defense, the Leningrad variation, and yeah, this is another interesting opening where kind of black kind of sets up kind of a almost like a kind of counter punching strategy based on how white positions their pawns here. Black is starting to think about things like moving their knight into this central outpost, and eventually they usually like to aim for an e5 break. But it looks like this is kind of worked out in white's favor here, because black ends up playing queen e8 and back, and over the next few moves, c5 is an interesting one. But yeah, white manages to find a nice break here in the center, and black's pawn structure starts to crumble a little bit in the center and the queen side. And yeah, now looks like white's in some very good shape here. he plays knight b5. This d6 pawn is just under a ton of pressure, and if the knight manages to capture on d6 there, it's just going to be such a strong piece. So black trades, but unfortunately, looks like the problem is still there. So white has this powerful idea, knight d6 ready, and from here the knight's going to be attacking b7. It's going to be attacking the queen. It will also be threatening to go to f7, where it could set up some discovered attacks or maybe win an exchange. So this looks very good for white here. Actually, though, it looks like black has played knight a5. This was something I wasn't thinking about. Yeah, that seems like a smart choice. Maybe on the following turn they're going to eliminate that knight, which we keep seeing as a problem. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out too. One game we haven't seen much was this one. So this is a definitely an unusual position to see no pawn trades at any point so far. We're almost at move 20 here, but black it looks like they're slowly just marching everything up the board here. I wonder how this happened. Maybe we can go back a little bit. So this game's between Owen McCoy and I see the last name there is Kothapali. So it seems like black is making the most out of their space advantage here. It turns into a reverse King's Indian. And yeah, this is interesting here. So black's last move g6 was preventing the knight from going to f5 here. And the normal thing in the King's Indian that you're aiming to do is place something like f4 here. Maybe white didn't want to do it because they could have been worried about maybe captures, and I wonder maybe something like knight g4, setting up knight e3 and also this attack on the knight.
And it's a
So
nice looking square.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you get your knight there, you don't even want to trade it for the rook. It's just let it sit there and admire it. But yeah, I think this might have been something white may not have accounted for, because actually on the next move he ends up playing. Let's see, it was looks like bishop f3, and then black starts to just seize a ton of space on the king side, and yeah, it looks very good for black here. So over the next few moves, they just kind of just play some natural moves in the center and on the king side here for black. But yeah, gotta like how black's doing here.
That white bishop, that light square bishop is hard to get out.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
same with both of their knights as well. Definitely,
Yeah.
black has healthier pieces here by far. And
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
even see like white trying to open up the position, like giving up material to do it. It's just black has such a bind.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one idea that looks like might lead to something for white here is if they're able to play queen b4 once this knight moves, and then from their point of view, they'd really like to be able to trade queens and soften up this pawn on e5 here a bit, so they could maybe break free a bit. And it looks like that's what happened here. So black played knight a5, queen b4, and then black has kept the queens on to help keep this pawn covered. Yeah, so white's definitely done what they can to help try to free themselves. But what's the next step here, like you're saying, John?
Black wasn't giving them any help, unfortunately, for them.
Yeah.
'Cause all three minor pieces for white are kind of just in limbo over there. Like, I can't even try to set anything up like an h3 with the bishop holding that to try to have something happen on g4. Might have to do something so like move my king over, on develop my knight, and then look to try to expand on that side. But there's just so much time spent, and it'll give black time to start rolling their pawns on the king side if they deem necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely prefer black in this position.
Yep. Let's see. So we were looking a little earlier at the game between. Oh, actually, we could take a look here at the King's Indian style game we were looking at earlier between.
Oh yeah.
There is the king one sailing.
Yeah, look at that.
Maybe it's not even. Maybe the king is just enjoying itself on this little adventure, because if it makes it to the queen side, it's not so bad. It's hard to we were talking all this entire time about how white's better on the queen side.
Might as well bring
Maybe it's
your
not so
queen
bad.
here. More defensive resources, I'd say, at least over there.
Definitely, and who knows? Maybe one day white will use the now open G file to attack somehow. But it looks really interesting. I'm curious how it eventually got here. We could go back really quickly, but yeah. So we were just seeing the game previously around this this point where black played rook a7, then rook a1. Yeah, they were forced to trade, and okay, so looks like they were setting up this idea to, to move queen g6 is definitely designed with the purpose of maybe trying to put extra pressure on e4. So setting up something like bishop f3, which would make white take back this way, and then e4 would be under attack. There is also the maybe the possible benefit of trying to play something like knight d5 at one moment, but it won't really work while the king is on this diagonal due to some potential pins. So white just plays king f2. They get out of the g file pin, and after black trades, it just takes with the g pawn. Now the whole center is really well protected, and yeah, it's hard to pass up on these checks here. So black invites themselves in here, and yeah, just after queen f2, it looks like they have this possible attack, but after queen c4, the king is finding a home on c2 if it needs it, and everything is pretty well protected here for white. It seems like they're doing okay. Yeah. What are your guys' thoughts on this one?
Yeah,
I'm like trying to find. So you go first, John.
I was gonna say, after all the fireworks, I think it might just start calming down here for a bit. It's gonna be hard for either person. It's one of those, I think, if somebody tries to overextend, like say black tries to bring their queen in, start checking, next thing they know, their king's kind of open. So I think it just might be keep the status quo for a bit and then just peaceful waters.
I was looking for a way to get the rook in the game. I'm seeing that knight d7 and c6 was played. Then is the knight coming to c5?
Oh, yeah. Let's check it out.
I wasn't really expecting c6, which doesn't mean wrong, but I was thinking, I wasn't really expecting that there.
Yeah, it does make some sense, at least because let's say we were to change things a bit here and capture. Now that the king is heading towards the c file, it makes sense maybe just to avoid ever running into like a rook c8 at some point, especially since black's next move is knight c5, which could allow black the chance to put the rook there.
Yeah.
In endgames too, it's a nice thing to have this pawn on c6 if white manages to trade queens at some point. Things like rook a7 and just attacking that weak pawn on c7. It just if white ever manages to capture it at some point, it's just going to lead to just a dominating advantage.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that black chose knight b6 here. I know personally I was thinking maybe their plan was more to play knight c5 here, but this also seems like
we're
go ahead.
Yeah, I was expecting knight c5, rook b8 or something like that. What do you think? Where do you think the queen's going to go?
It looks like we can find the answer out ourselves here with queen c3, but looks like seems reasonable for white to try to keep control of the d4 square, prevent maybe a check like this. So now black tries to bring the rook over. This is an interesting kind of scheme that white's setting up here. That black is, because the knight controls the a8 square, which white might want to use for the rook at some point. Also, the rook on f7 here is going to help keep control of c7, just in the event that, let's say, there was a rook a7 at some point. So it's kind of an interesting way to improve your pieces and also keep improving your pieces, but at the same time limit some of white's options here.
Yeah, I like that idea for black.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So yeah, it seems like there's kind of like a reorganizing phase here after this initial kind of like confrontation where the king has been forced to run.
Black tries something like rook g7, rook g3, sack the rook. What would be like white's response to something like that? and it might not be what black's doing. Maybe they're gonna go to G2 and they're gonna do something else. I'm just looking at if the rook could take on F3 already. Like, is there anything there? Like knight takes, queen takes, get 2 pawns and a knight for it with those passers. That seems good.
True. Yeah, actually, and then once you take this, maybe like lots of pawns start to fall down. I'm not totally sure. White has a little bit of time here. This is it takes a couple moves to set this up, but
yeah,
what does White do to create a threat in the meantime?
like they could play rook F1, but maybe then just queen E3 check, or
That's that makes sense. Yeah, rook F1 does seem like a good move. I was just thinking if White could trade queens, this would definitely help them. So something like this, maybe Black needs to avoid letting this happen.
yeah, maybe just go, maybe not E3 at all, or I don't know, but where else, like G2, like what else is worth doing?
Yeah, it's a good question. It'd be interesting even to think about just setting it up like this too and trying to get a battery on the 7th rank. But yeah, now that the queen's on H2, even if it comes to G2, let's say, things like queen C1 might be possible.
Yeah.
And maybe trying to like trade off queens this way. And yeah, it seems like after rook F1, things will be under control. Actually, this is exactly what happened. So,
okay.
So queen G2 was played, and then White brought their queen back. Rook G7 was played to prevent the pin, and then queen E1 got played. So yeah, it seems like they're like we kind of agree with everything that's happening. It looks like they're playing really well, and yeah, I think Black's attack is kind of ending at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you saying, John?
As I said, yeah, at this level, we're kind of expecting better play throughout. So.
Let's see. So we were previously looking at a game between. Well, actually, this game looks like it's getting kind of heating up a bit. So we were just seeing this one not that long ago, and Black has fully embraced the advance relentlessly strategy here. And now they've just played F5. And if you're sitting here in White's shoes, this has got to feel a little uncomfortable. Just everything is coming towards you here.
Definitely.
And White has kind of tried to reorganize their pieces a bit. I bet, they're probably interested in trying something, maybe eventually to just kind of knock back some of these pieces. But every pawn move contains a bit of poison for them, because just gives Black another pawn to try to latch onto and open up something near the king. So yeah, hard to suggest something good here for White. It looks a bit uncomfortable.
I think they're doing all they can really do to just try to get their pieces to better squares. Unfortunately, that means going backwards before they can go forward again, and maybe try to get some help from opponents to open up the position. Man, this is definitely quite a bind.
Yeah, I wonder if they would be interested in trying something like F3. I wouldn't be totally sure how. Like maybe Black goes back to F6, but maybe they can try to capture here and just kind of just hold water here for a bit. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how White responds here. Oh, actually, it looks like they ended up going for H4. So wasn't thinking so much about that one, but it's maybe an idea to slow down Black's pawn storm on the king side here. Yeah, it'll be curious to see how that goes. Okay, so let's maybe check out another game here. So we were talking a little bit before about this game, which got frozen, and it's between two very strong players, Gus Huston and Daniel Schumann. It doesn't have his name listed there, but I'm thinking that's who it is. And let's see. So they played a Scandinavian defense here. Looks like both sides just played some very reasonable moves. Doesn't look like there's any particular, like, kind of very, very I guess it's not following any like strict theory here is I guess what I'm trying to say, but yeah, there's sensible developing moves throughout the middle game, and eventually we end up in a position where it seems to look like White's got a little pressure here, although both sides have their targets that they're aiming for. So d4 from Black's point of view is a nice pawn here to just have their rooks aimed at. From White's point of view, they have this target here on e6, which is under a lot of pressure from the knight, the queen, White's rook. But maybe if Black gets a chance, they could play something like b6, and this knight's going to be it's going to be unclear maybe where it wants to go, because it doesn't want to go back to d3 while it gives Black the chance to take. So it'll be interesting to see how this keeps going here.
Looks like White decided to do pawn takes pawn, realizing they probably won't just beat down on the e6 pawn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that, yep, so Black, I would assume, taking back, and then question is, does White try to take the 7th now while has the opportunity, or but at the cost of the pawn? So definitely something that had to be calculated, couldn't just rush into.
Yeah, it looks like that's a good idea, at least from what I'm seeing here. Probably Black will take, or at least taking is a serious move to look at. And then after rook e7, it's hard to prevent some captures on the queen side here. And even if Black manages to get this pawn, seems like White's pieces are a little bit more threatening here. The queen, these pawns are still good targets for the rook. Things like rook a7 and rook c7 will attack a lot of the targets.
The White knight I just see also much stronger in this position than Black's knight. Black's knight tries to come out, then we could look to bring ours in and just really hit down on that g7 square.
Yeah, good point.
I would definitely be comfortable with White in this position, but I'm also confident enough that I could lose from either.
Same.
Yeah, maybe Black could even try avoiding the queen trade if this happens. Actually, we're getting an update here. So actually the queen trade did happen and we reached this position. So rather than capture the pawn on d4, Black's trying to get rid of the knight first.
Sensible move.
Yeah, definitely.
With the cute little tactic, if we did just say, hey, we have a fork, Black breaks free with this. And that knight actually ends up blocking our own thing and kind of finds itself off sides. Nice little move
good
there.
point. So yeah, now actually White is faced with a kind of a tough choice. It may be the case that this is still even the best move, but it looks like Black's chances are much improved compared to what I was just thinking about.
So we might see that happen.
Yeah. Otherwise, where the knight doesn't really have a great option. Like if you head to a4, it's not so well placed here.
It is saying b6 if we get a7. Is that worth anything or no? Like compare a4 to b7. Why would b7 be better than a4? They both seem out of place. I mean.
Yeah.
Oh,
interesting.
What, they're saying the knight b7 compared to a4?
Yeah, like if they're both bad, I'm just wondering which one's slightly better.
I think a4 is better because the problem with b7, it also hampers our own rook from working on the back rank, and there's no square for that knight to go to, since the pawn stops the two escape squares and then the rook stops the other. But on a4, we could bring it back if need be to like a c3 and try to redeploy, or...
Yeah, and in the game he chose b7, but what you guys were saying about the knight being better on a4 makes sense too.
I was gonna say, actually, we're still, yeah. So they went into that.
Yeah.
Let me update the live board real quick.
It'll be interesting to see if maybe taking here. We were also looking at the that aggressive attacking game a little bit earlier with this position, and actually it looks like. Okay. I was looking at the position here, and I was thinking, hey, things look like they're definitely turning around for White. Looks like White's created kind of like a wedge on the king side. It looks like the pawns have been blocked, and probably White's chances are going to improve here now that the king side's closed. But then turns out that there's en passant here, which completely changes things. was thinking that move wasn't legal at the time, and yeah, it looks like this still could be a good attack here for Black, because they're going to have some open files to work with, and but it seems like White has done their best here to kind of get some counterplay, reorganize their pieces. They're going to have to take care.
Like
Yeah.
this position about 10 moves ago looked more or less hopeless. Now it's like, okay, maybe not everything's solved, but at least I'm not just going to get smothered.
Absolutely. Yeah, how about we check out some of the other games we haven't seen much. This is one game we actually haven't looked at all. So this is between Abhinav Mundayat and Rushan Mahajan. Hopefully I'm pronouncing those names reasonably.
So this is in the K-9 section for those watching at home.
Yeah, actually, I think I played Abhinav in the Team East online this year. So, and I played him recently at a tournament in Charlotte. Yeah, one of the first ones over the board in person cool. Again. But yeah, he's a Sveshnikov player, just like some of our team members, and yeah, he seems to know his variations, because he was. Yeah, this was. Never mind. So this was this is a different one than we had seen before. But it looks like it was also a Catalan, similar to another one we had looked at earlier. And it's interesting because they eventually lead into this kind of imbalanced endgame here. And White's got these two passed pawns. They're disconnected, but if White can manage to connect them, they're going to be really menacing. But Black does have this pawn in return for these connected ones, and they're up the exchange. So it's interesting to see how this will balance out here. Black's rook on c8 is really, really passive, but if given some time, maybe Black can bring their king around, maybe kind of plan to get the rook activated again. So yeah, these kind of end games. Yeah, I think they're very sharp. It's kind of like anything can happen, because both sides have their pluses, and it's just going to be interesting to see how it works out here.
I think it's one of those, like, Black, it obviously would want to get rid of their c pawn, but if they were to do it now, it would come at the cost of their d pawn, and that might make things harder for them to actually try to push for an advantage. So I could easily see both of the players coming towards that d pawn instead of Black trying to just pick up the other pawn. So fun stuff.
Yeah, you think also maybe if you try to get the pawn with something like rook d7, then bishop a5 is an idea. Maybe it's not so easy to just grab the pawn right away. Although, yeah, definitely, yeah, this is an issue, but maybe the king makes it back in time. I don't know. It's even analyzing this. I'm not clear at all. It's just.
Yeah, I think key though, Black has to definitely try to be more active if they can. Like something like this, I think they're starting to be a little too inactive. Because the moment they stop being active, yeah, in this position, White's going to start marching that other pawn to get up there for defense.
Yeah, we actually had maybe a move or two played here, and it looks like Black has made some progress. White's recent moves were just bringing the king in front of the pawn, which is sensible for sure. I think if Black managed to play king d7 though, and then reorganize their pieces so the rooks can move around again, especially the one on c8, I think probably that's the best case scenario for them, and they could start to look for ways to activate the rook. And I think at that point, there's a good chance that this extra exchange will start to play a role. So it looks like Black has done a good job of reorganizing their pieces here and setting themselves up to play an active plan coming up. So that's nice to see.
I'm noticing next to that game we got that interesting King's Indian structure that wasn't a King's Indian, is now a weird looking knight endgame. Don't see this position that often.
Definitely not.
So like, what are the chances here? Like, is it just a draw, or is there like, obviously if a king went too far away, you could imagine a knight sacrificing on e4 or a white knight sacrificing on d6, but neither side's going to allow something like that, right? So are there any practical things to go for here, or am I missing something and one side's better, or is this just a draw?
My money's on a draw because, like you had mentioned, moving the king too far away opens opportunity to sack for one of the pawns and open up queening.
Yeah.
And same, like I could see both players trying to get their knights to trying to attack the base if they were going for a win. But if I'm the player and somebody's trying to attack my base, I'm just going to keep my king by it. And if they try to bring their king to also come after it, like, okay, now's my opportunity to counter.
What about white gets their king to g4? So you're not going far away, and you try and sack the knight for f4 and try and get 2 pawns or something.
Not a bad idea. We just have to kind of time it to make sure that, like, a knight doesn't come to c4 to try to throw a little monkey wrench into the plan.
Yeah. Probably should just be a draw. I'm just looking for some, chance to swindle.
I mean, I would definitely keep playing it out, especially if I was the person with the time advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, like white now in this position, what's on live on the board, could have kind of boxed the king out for a little bit. They're opting to bring the king around, but like a knight in would have kept the king from coming back. They would have to keep marching up if they want to come back.
Mm-hmm. And I liked your comment on like kind of how to like dream up a swindle there. It just
yeah, like it might not be there, but like let's take a look.
Exactly. It's good to be resourceful and look for a kind of like surprising option. So yeah, black is kind of setting up an interesting setup here. They're going for probably king b6, which makes sense. It's gonna be hard to attack this c7 pawn much, but it makes it a bigger question. Yeah, can you start to take on f4 here? Your idea before makes a lot more sense here.
Yeah.
The king is very far away, so that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we could get the king a little bit further away. Oh, right, so they did play it. I was wondering about this move. Bringing a knight into d7, cutting off all 3 of those squares for the king. Black responds in kind to just hit this pawn, so now this is where I mentioned yesterday where a lot of times bishops are better than knights in the endgame is because you could waste moves with it. Like if you could make black move here, bring the knight away, you could maybe look to come in, but you can't move your king now. You have to move the knight. So they did find some squares for it. They went here.
I got h5 instead of d7 just to try and suck if it was possible. I just feel like you can't really. I don't know. It feels like you're not going to there if you get 2 pawns.
Yeah, I feel like black played knight c2 in the game. If they really wanted to prevent knight f4, it feels like they could pretty much eliminate it altogether with this move, I think.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I wonder if maybe they're not concerned about it.
I think we might see white spend a good amount of time on this. Okay, they opted out. This is one of those where white, honestly, if they needed more time to think about it, could probably repeat it a little bit just to get back to that position with a little more time to think. But
I think I would have done it.
I'm fairly confident you would have done it.
Somehow something would have gone wrong for the other person.
And we would have been hailing you a hero or a villain by the end of it.
It's fair.
Sean, do you ever base your decision off who you're playing? Like, should I sacrifice here, but for this reason or that reason?
I don't do it on who I'm playing, but on the result I need. Like if I was white and I needed a win in this game, heartbeat look to do that. If I need a draw, then it's like, all right, let me just not mess up.
Yeah.
Good question, Bapid. Somebody asked if 4.5 out of 8 is good enough. I'm not sure. Again, results won't be set in stone until 2 to 3 weeks after this anyway. But definitely gave yourself a good shot with that score. So we'll know in about 2 to 3 weeks once all the fair play analysis, any suspect cheating's taken care of. We'll know then. All right, so now in that game, we had a bunch more moves happen, and now black is trying to offer the same idea, like, you attack my knight? So, white smartly did not take.
You.
I think we might just see these knights keep popping around.
Right. Okay, I know this is not supposed to be a good idea, of course, but if you take and play some like e5, this definitely doesn't work, right? I'm okay.
We have
I'm sure it doesn't work.
Home.
If he took on e5,
Yeah, I'll.
the
Oh no, yeah. If he takes on e5,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't work. Yeah. Okay, never
But
mind.
it's good to we have the benefit of playing from home, and we could let everybody see what we're talking about on that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no way to get this c pawn rolling. So
and I liked your idea to see if there's any surprise thing with like.
I'm learning from you. I'm learning about the swindle. So,
you gotta at least look at it.
but if you self swindle, that's not the right kind.
That's the problem. That's the problem. There's always
I don't-
that risk.
know exactly what happened in the other game we're just looking at with the bishop versus rook. But somehow it looks like white actually made a little bit of progress. The bishop's on a nice square now, freeing up the other rook to move.
It looks like actually black might have picked up a pawn too. So maybe both sides have made some progress here.
I think what might happen, black picked up the pawn, but white did it to try to secure their advanced pawn.
Mm-hmm.
And the second board, we see there was just a draw agreed there. Yep, that looks like a drawn position. Rook's in front of the pawn.
Oh, you mean this one?
Yeah, rook's in front of the pawn. That's a fair result.
Yep.
And then the Gus game looks pretty interesting. The pawn versus no pawn, but both have knights.
Yeah, there's a saying that knight endgames are the closest to pawn endgames that there are.
It's interesting. Why is that?
I think maybe because they can't waste tempo and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like how bishop, you could kind of just back it up and still have the same position. You could triangulate a little bit. Knights, you have to be more deliberate with their movement.
Yeah, a couple moves ago, I was thinking, I was looking at this off screen, but a few moves ago, it seemed like maybe black's chances here of holding were like a little bit better. It seems like white's made some progress, allowing this pawn to keep advancing here. So I'm kind of wondering, just these last few moves quickly. Yeah, there's oftentimes a lot of just knight fork tricks where you could try to sacrifice your knight for the final pawn with something like.
They just set up in that position, and they did set up that idea in the live board too.
Okay, so let's check it out. Yeah, so black has just played.
So if white were to push their pawn, black says thank you.
Yeah, this looks like you could just like get so excited, just like yes, I'm about to queen, and then no.
But even say like you recognize that and come here, this is still also annoying.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd probably expect a knight move, maybe to check or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even just kind of glancing at what you were just talking about, like I think you were maybe mentioning before, like knights can't lose tempo, and I could almost see like some kind of situation arise here where maybe black ends up in like a zugzwang if like, end up needing to move this knight somehow, or like run out of things to do with their king. Like it wouldn't be possible right now, but just as a general idea, maybe maybe a different position. But
yeah, because like this position, black would be threatening the idea of, say, knight comes to protect, we just attack everything type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Still not.
Well, actually, 1 second. So, I think that definitely makes some sense. I wonder. Yeah, I guess I'm trying to make something work.
You're trying to find some sort of fork, probably throwing the knight away, and then once the knight's gone, we could double tap that in.
Yeah. Okay, so in the game he played. Yeah, it looks like they've reached this position here. And it's black to move, so black might be trying something like knight a5 here again. The knight's also kind of well placed on a5 just because it's so far away from the king too. Like maybe in other situations you might like to put your knight on c5 here, but you kind of have to constantly worry about maybe getting checked a certain way when the king is close and keeping your knight safe, making sure it's not getting driven away or deflected somehow.
Good question. Somebody asked about what score qualifies. That's hard to gauge. I think the one section it's about like 32 to 37 or so players qualify, and the other one's like 40 to 50 range. So if you look at the results now, you can kind of get a gauge for that. So just eyeballing it real quick, and I'm saying lower as in age, the K through 9 section, it looks like if you have 6 points and above, you're in a pretty good spot. not guaranteed. And then it's probably similar for the other division. Again, results will not be finalized until 2 to 3 weeks. So as long as you gave yourself your best shot, that's all you could really go with. And now we could get back to chess.
There we go. And this is kind of a late update, but it looks like a little while back there was a checkmate here on that exciting game we were seeing. We were wondering if Black was going to break through, and the answer is yes.
I'd be curious to see how that happened, because it seemed White was finally starting to get out of the bind a little bit.
Yeah, we were seeing it right around the point where the Black had played en passant, and then both sides like geared up on the king side here.
That seems.
I wonder if there was any other choices there. Yeah, maybe they thought they could play this and then capture, but yeah, it's also going to leave the G2 knight under attack.
Or maybe,
then
I guess they're like, oh, and then I'll pick up the bishop if they take my knight, and might have just missed something.
Yeah, probably.
Is queen coming up, hitting the rook, and mate. Could do it.
Sorry, maybe queen G3 is even better.
Oh yeah,
so like this, just go to H2.
A little more forcing. We don't need that rook.
Yeah, so interesting.
So it looks like they were also in time pressure, so that's understandable. Like they, in time pressure, probably calculated, well, they can't take my knight because I could take the bishop at the end of it, but not realizing that until it happened on the board, like, oh no. If they saw that beforehand, I think they probably would have went rook f2, giving up that crucial g3 pawn. But we've all been there before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then once that was given up, it looked like it was just a matter of nice finish there by Black. We still have two more games in the K through the K through 12 section. So we'll start putting in viewer games shortly. We already have a queue started. The
one last game I was just going to mention here would be this one, which we saw this was kind of a very interesting end game with some imbalances, and both sides were potentially had some chances here. But it looks like over the last few moves, so this has gone in Black's favor here. So able to create this extra pressure on the pin here with their most recent move. And yeah, it's going to be just difficult for White to deal with this. And it looks like Black's winning this bishop and should be in reasonable shape here. I'm wondering if maybe one attempt at counterplay could be something like this, where maybe White plays king c1, and there's no guarantee that this leads to anything good. But yeah, Sean, like you were saying before, just in an attempt to be kind of resourceful here, I wonder if maybe there's a little bit of counterplay potentially like this, where b6 gets played and the rook can't capture happily because the rook would be undefended on d2, but White starts to threaten rook h shade, and then a c8 move coming up. So in the game, White played king e1, which could be setting up something very similar. And it's interesting because you would assume Black just wants to capture this piece immediately, like everything has worked out, but maybe they're also looking at something similar. So they actually play rook e6 here. They don't even take the bishop. So that's very interesting. So we'll have to see how this plays out, but they're both in severe time pressure. It looks like king d1 was played, and then they're repeating. So this
thinking about it.
Yeah.
You were saying before, when you're in pressure, sometimes you can just repeat once or twice and while you're thinking, right?
Definitely. Unfortunately, 5 seconds doesn't really just take the load off when.
So if he did go to c1 and then rook takes and then b6, what would Black do there? Could they try something like? Oh no, never mind. I think if the king was on e1, that maybe there's like a check to bring the rook back. That still loses the rook. Problem.
So I had a peaceful ending, drawn by repetition, but we could check it out. See.
Yeah, sure. So we could look at it after this move. Maybe this is just another good version to look at. So you can maybe just try rook takes d2. There's b6 here, and then the big concern is that White's threatening rook h8, and
Oh no, never mind. Yeah, it's interesting. Nice resource.
Definitely one
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to add to my
maybe
repertoire.
they could try. Yeah, definitely. Maybe they could try rook C2 here. I think it's going to be a draw, but eventually, yeah, maybe something like rook B8, and then probably White's gonna give up both of these connected pass pawns for the rook here. But yeah, White will play something like rook H8, and their king is really close to the pawn on G3. Black's pawns are stuck the way they are, so I think this is a draw. But still, maybe Black could put a little pressure on here. Doesn't seem like there's any risk.
Maybe if they had played king c1, and like you suggest, instead of e1, then there wouldn't be the rook c2 option. The king would be further from the pawns, but maybe you don't have to worry about that if there's no rook c2.
Yeah, good point. Let's see. So if we had gone the other way and then take. Yeah, it does seem like it's absolutely critical Black does something about rook h8 here, but their options seem really, really limited.
So Black here, I guess, would probably just do rook takes pawn. Just say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a draw again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems like a fair result. Looks like yeah, it's kind of as expected then.
So you got some confirmation coming in that yeah, 6.5 you should be qualified, and then 6.0 that's probably going to be what the bubble is, where most of the people with 6.0 will probably advance, but there might be a couple based off of tiebreakers that because I don't think there's playoffs for this. So
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I was trying to look at the results and look at the percentages and when they were asking, and I was not completely sure here.
So all these games in this section are winding down. They're still, the clocks are still actually going on the last one there. They might
Which
still
one?
be playing the Nims, not the Nims, the King's Indian we were looking at. Yep, that game's actually still going on.
That's like a true King's Indian player, just always fighting.
Looking
So
for any
It
last
actually
resource.
started as a NIMZO and it kind of turned into that.
maybe he needs to adopt the King's Indian
Yeah.
in his repertoire.
Exactly.
I'm
Oh,
just
you
kidding
like
around, but
questions? Let me show you. Obviously, he knows. Predictions? Oh, we took D5.
oh wow.
All right, we got.
I wonder if what's their score in the tournament. I wonder if Black feels they really need to push it here.
They should probably be in a solid spot. Let's see, Bach. We're in the K-9 section, right?
Yes.
The Bach, they're on 6 points. So again, 6.5 would probably get them there. And their opponent, probably similar, I would guess also. So they're playing 23, who's also on 6 points.
Okay.
At worst, it looks like Black's drawing this, just trading off those 2 pawns, and worst comes worst, I could just come back, hit the knight, pick up the other pawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still seems just based on the tournament situation, I wonder if just seems like a very aggressive choice, but yeah, I guess if you really trust like what you're seeing here, then it could be reasonable.
Another good question in chat real quick. Is there a difference between scoring first and 40th? That's from Warm Oatmeal. I'm not sure if there's like any ranking based off of like the actual results.
I think so. Yeah, I don't think there's too much difference. If you qualify, you qualify.
Like the only thing I could think is like they might have placements. Like if you're first here, you'll be forced forward at the event, but I'm not sure about that. Regardless, it wouldn't make too much of a difference. Goal today is definitely just to qualify.
Yep. All of this pending fair play analysis.
Yep, we are reiterating for those at home. Definitely, there's going to be the 2 to 3 week analysis before all results are finalized. So again, just go out there and get the best result you can, and then just see where the cards lie at the end of the day.
Finals will also be online. Asked if the finals will be in person, but this year everything for this is going to be online.
So, that right? Let me refresh the overlay.
Yeah, I'm slowly coming around to your guys' thoughts on this the sacrifice here too.
It felt like worst comes to worst, he should be able to get a draw, right? It just felt like there's no way, like it feels like there's a bailout option too. A little bit.
So what-
Yeah. Sorry,
people,
Sean.
somebody asked about qualified. What they're qualifying is for the National Online Scholastic Chess Championship. This is sort of the stand-in. Usually, this is the year where the Supernatural. I keep saying Supernaturals.
Keep
When the
saying
Super Nationals happen, but with still everything somewhat on like undecided, up in the air on lockdowns and such not. This year it's online, and instead of being Super Nationals, it's the National Online Scholastic Chess Championship. We're using online ratings instead of our overboard ratings. So the finals will be June 12th to 13th. Qualifying this weekend was the K-9 and K-12 sections. And now back to this one position. Yeah, at worst, Black should feel confident that they'll get a draw here, and they might get a win. So makes sense to go into the sack. Worst comes to worst, they could force the trade off of like their group of pawns for the one, and a king would be able to take up the other one.
Call.
Well, predictions. Black gonna win it.
I predict stress. It's like with 20 seconds left here. For
Plenty of time.
I don't know if that's. I think Black actually has the time advantage. So this definitely looks like Black has some good chances here.
I thought Black had the 20 seconds. Am I reading it wrong?
Yeah, maybe I'm reading it wrong.
So
Which
yeah,
one has,
Black has 20 seconds left.
Okay, gotcha. Now I'm not so confident. The situation seems to be changing here a bit. So
Happening fast.
yeah, these pawns are blockaded, so that's not what you're looking for here with Black.
No.
If you play something like, pawn takes pawn, and then it'll be interesting. I kind of want to reach a position where I'm not sure how to achieve this, but
Well, there is action happening here.
okay, let's see.
And then there was a 95 check. He can't take c7 though, right? Because I mean, push, the knight can't move away with check. If the knight could move away with check, it'd be different maybe.
Yeah, good point. At the worst, White could play something like king e3, and there's really no risk anymore for them.
Yeah.
But it seems like after king e3, then king e5, we can make the moves on the board here. But yeah, the king is probably going to make it to d6 or just capture the pawn at c6. And at that point, it looks like it would be basically just locked up as a draw. But
Yeah.
White can maybe try to, if they make an attempt to try to put their knight on a square to keep this pawn defended, it's not really possible probably. And let's see if things are changing here a bit. So yeah, still seems to be the same position. And yeah, this seems like a kind of like a big moment psychologically for White, just because if you play a move like king e3, you're accepting a draw as most likely result. And White's made a bit of progress, but yeah, with these pass pawns here, it's unlikely that this pawn can kind of cover the promotion square, but at the same time stop Black from just returning back and capturing the pawn. So it seems like the game should be a draw.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've definitely given it their best.
Nice fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looks like all the top boards are ending in draws in this section at least.
And looking at the score sheet, it's 112 moves. I mean, these guys did not leave anything left up to chance here. They're battling it out. Oh wow, we've definitely seen some.
Oh,
wow!
My goodness. Oh, there's 93. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The check.
Forgot about that.
But I
Wow.
still think we're gonna just end up Black will pick up that other pawn.
Yeah.
And,
Doesn't matter.
yeah.
King e6.
Yeah. Still, again, we were just saying, fighting chess, still going for like one last try. I like it.
I think it'll be a fair result though.
Yeah, they have to just play it out until it's just two kings.
Wait, so if they push the pawn now, the king just goes to d7, right? They don't just promote.
Yep. Because White's knight will have to come back to defend. And good show. So now that games are kind of wrapping up, we could start putting in some viewer requested games. I'll start loading them into the UI. We have a couple from the K-12 section. And we'll just focus on this game in the meantime, since it's one and the last one still standing and it's about to end. Pretty spectacular. And there we go. We finally got to draw.
Yeah.
So there's actually
Awesome
looks like
finish.
Justin and Quinn are still playing. We can focus on that. Maybe they had a late start to things.
0 time for me. Is that not right?
Who did you say it was?
Justin? Maybe, yeah, the UI probably just lost it. So let's see. Yep, all games are finished. So looks like the UI just missed this step. So any viewer games, we'll do them, toss them in. We have a couple again in the K through 12 section. So let's start filling out this board. Otherwise, all games are done. And yeah, that was a lot of fun chess at the end there.
Definitely.
Yes, yeah, here. So we should have something loading up on board 1. Which ended in a checkmate. And then we can look at what was the other there.
Sure, I'll bring up this one.
Yep.
All right, so was the person who submitted it, were they playing white or black? You know?
Good question, I do not. So we'll just assume whoever won was them. I know if I got checkmated, I probably wouldn't share that game. It would
That
go.
being said, some people have brought in some games that they lost, looking to learn, and that's really, really awesome. Definitely more people hoping to show off a win, probably. Can understand both mentalities.
Definitely. All right, well, we can go with maybe black being the main focus, but let's check it out here. And we have a Carocon to start. So, yeah, and just in case the person with white here is submitting the game, I think playing d4 on move 2 here gives you the most options. That way you can meet black's response with something like e5 if you like, or you could defend your pawn with knight c3. You could also capture. You have plenty of options here, and generally speaking, I think d4 is considered probably the best test to this opening. So it's a good thing just to think about. But they just trade here in the center, and yeah, black goes with e6. I wonder, actually, this is only a very small thing, but in the Carocon, one of the advantages of playing that particular opening compared to, let's say, the French defense is that you give yourself the option to develop your bishop early on in the game. So I think with black here, you want to leave yourself the option of maybe playing bishop g4 and finding an active place for it. You could also consider putting your bishop on f5. That's a good thing to keep in mind. But probably first up, you can just play knight c6, keep things simple here, and then look to develop your bishop outside the pawn chain. And later on, you could play e6. It's a nice setup here. So let's go back. So e6 was played. Okay. All right. So I would recommend here with that white, if you're going to keep the bishop, it's better to just hold on to it, and then probably you just want to keep your bishop at this point, especially if your opponent kind of provokes you with h6. Probably it's best to make a decision at this point if you want to capture. If you play bishop h4, I just recommend you. First of all, I think this is a good move, and secondly, probably better to just hold off on this move for a while then, because it'd be better to just do it immediately. Okay, so end up trading. And with black, you have to feel pretty happy here because black's got the bishop pair. This dark square bishop is very valuable considering there is a light square pawn chain here in the center. So just being able to control the e5 square for black is nice. And pretty close to even here. Okay, so white goes c4. This might actually be helping black a little bit more than it's helping white. Usually if your opponent, or if one side has the bishop pair, you want to try to keep the side with the bishop pair wants the center to open up. That way the bishops have more space to move around. There's longer diagonals and things like that. So with white here, I would actually probably be more inclined just to play c3, just keep things nice and solid. And then in the upcoming moves, let's say black goes something like knight c6 to play probably rook e1. develop more pieces. You can try to plant your knight on e5 where it's going to be on a very good square. And then you can take it from there, let's say with white, but just keep the position nice and closed for now. Let's return back to the game though. So we had c4 get played. And black takes with their queen. That's a good choice, avoiding an isolated pawn, and also now enabling themselves to just put a lot of pressure on this pawn here. So I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to add here, but
I'd say, yeah, so far everything looks like legal moves. I too also like the queen takes. Sure, the light squared bishop's still trapped behind its own pawn, but there's always chances of e5 or even b6 and develop that way along the long diagonal.
Yeah, yeah. That's what black does here. They play b6. Great move. Especially a nice idea preventing knight c5 here. So looks good. Okay, so this is definitely going to force a trade. And black goes queen c7. I think here with black, you want to be very careful that you don't end up in some kind of dominating pins. You know, this knight's currently pinned to the rook. Now that your queen and knight are on the same file, you have to watch out for also something like this happening.
Maximum
and white,
pin.
maximum pin. And there's a lot of extra friendly pieces here which are going to help out. You have, especially if the rook's on c1, there's things like knight d4, queen c2, or queen f3 even, and yeah, there's a lot of firepower here for white. So white goes rook c1. That's a great move, and then queen c2. So this is basically just exactly what we're talking about. Probably black needs to play rook c8 here. Yep, knight d4. So this looks exactly kind of as planned.
Looks a little uncomfortable for black here.
Ah, but they have knight d4, so that might change things. That's a clever move. Yeah, so maybe black realized this in advance and spotted this resource here. So I have to kind of wonder then, maybe white's better off leaving the queen not able to get attacked by maybe the knight coming to d4, setting maybe something up like bishop takes here first and then maybe knight d4 along those lines. Maybe that seems like a better approach probably.
Or yeah, what about so bishop takes, queen c2, and then looking to maybe do the knight over.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. Yeah, that seems like a smart option. Yeah, so white just needed to eliminate this annoying knight, the pesky little knight there.
Yeah, cute little tactic.
So, yeah, nice idea.
I probably would have missed that in a 25-minute game as well.
Yeah, easy to not see this. So he takes, and then so white avoids queen takes queen. Wow, so black can just play this anyway. Yeah, that's a nice move.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Brilliant idea.
White should have probably just done queen takes queen.
Yeah, it seems like that's most likely the best approach here. It looks like they're going to end up losing two pieces for a rook, but at the same time, well, black can throw in knight e2. I'm just not sure if it's worth it yet, but they can take here, and the minor pieces are good, but you know, after rook takes a7, for example, seems like white is still absolutely in the game here, and
it's a solid rook too.
Yeah, definitely. So this would be really interesting. So what was played though was let's see, queen d2, and as well as knight e2, there's also even queen c1 here, but I'm not sure.
It looks fun.
Not guaranteeing. Yeah, it's at least a fun move to play, but not saying it's stronger necessarily than knight e2, but probably leading to similar positions here. So yeah, that knight e2 was a nice shot. Way to go. So after taking, so white did capture. So at this point, with white should try to anticipate kind of the follow-up here and judge if it's, you know, how good it is for them, because they have the chance to take this bishop right now. It's not protected, so it's best to go for this and then just capture the bishop. But okay, after rook takes c1, yeah, black ends up capturing and they're going to win the bishop. So a nice sequence there from black, some really good tactical ideas. Yeah, very good. Rook d8 is a great move. Rook c8 would be even a tiny bit better, just getting to c2 and attacking all these pawns in the second rank. And it's nice to just be able to make sure you're perfectly protected there no matter what. And the king can't prevent it, so you'd be guaranteed to get there. So white plays king g3, and I think judging by the final position, it looks like black was able to kind of mop up some of these pawns here, and then use their the queenside pawns to just promote.
All right, so
yeah, nice game though.
That was a nice tactic. That definitely hard to find, just like as the player with white pieces, to see that tactic come.
Definitely.
All right, so I think on board 2 is the only other game we had requested.
The Daniel game, is that right?
Correct.
This one. Okay, great. Let's take a look here.
We got a perk. Oh, no G6 anymore.
Yep. Okay, so let's check it out. So black goes for, less common opening here.
Is the black range?
Yeah, I think that might be the name of it. I usually see people go for e5 a little bit earlier, but black kind of protects the square a bit more, plays queen c7. So interesting. And then counter strikes with e5 here. So from white's point of view, I think usually they just try to keep the center nice and stable. They try to keep it protected. Things like castle, then moving the rook over to e1, maybe even getting the bishop out of the way to just have the rook apply extra protection. And black, in the meantime, just kind of creates a nice, little setup where they have some space to kind of maybe quietly improve their pieces, maybe castle and then b6, bishop e7, slowly advance to the center of the queen side. And it's really hard for white to find something to attack here and keep improving their position too. So it's definitely not an easy position to play here for white. It's the kind of position where you can play a lot of natural moves, and then whatever you do after that is just hard to figure out. So white seems to just be kind of continuing with this trend of just centralizing, developing. Certainly makes sense.
Sorry, I looked away for a second. Was h3 played before black castled or after? I was just remembering something that I thought somebody had said once. If you play h3, or sometimes black doesn't castle, and they do it for like h6, g5, knight f8, knight g6 stuff.
So it did happen after they castled.
Yeah.
It did happen after they castled.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. That could definitely have popped up.
And sometimes h3 is then a hook if they haven't castled yet. But if they've already castled, you don't really have to worry so much about that type of thing, probably.
It would definitely be a bold decision for black to start attacking. With bold decision I've made many times, and sometimes I looked like a genius, other times not so much.
Yeah, it'd be extra bold. Score some style points, but maybe not strength points. But with white here, I just find that this is such a confusing position because there's no obvious plan. Sometimes people like to aim for something like knight h4 to f5, but you always have to be concerned about discoveries. Also, rerouting the knight to c4 can sometimes be a good idea if you put some pressure on the queen side squares, or d6. But yeah, queen d2 gets played, and white just continues to play just absolutely normal, sensible moves. With black, my instinct would be to avoid that move. I think you probably could get a little bit better counterplay, playing something like a6 here, and then trying to play b5. Because at least with black, you want to be able to kind of give yourself a pawn break to open up your pieces a bit more, create a bit more counterplay. And after a5, I think you end up a little more stuck and not able to activate your pieces quite as much. If black does manage to play b5 here, you also set up a move like b4 in the future, attacking the knight, which is also guarding this pawn here, which is a useful little tactical device you could aim for. So I think that would be my first clear difference between what I'm thinking and what's happening in the game here. So black plays a5, and yeah, I think this is just another good illustration how it's just hard to find moves here. So bishop f1 gets played. Okay, so I think this kind of pawn structure is going to be a little bit more favorable for white. Certainly, I could see, there could be good intentions or good, good thoughts behind playing c5 here to open up the bishop. But in the meantime, there's a lot of good squares here that white might be able to use for their pieces now. Something like knight b5 in the future could be an idea, or bishop b5. Maybe white should also just think about blocking the center and permanently closing out this bishop, and then maybe advancing on the queen side a little more slowly. So let's see what they opt for here. So they do go d5. Seems to make a lot of sense. So h6, g3. Okay, black goes for c4. An interesting move. Definitely want to make sure you're keeping this pawn securely defended now that it's no longer part of the pawn chain. And yeah, I think it could be the case here, but I'd also start to worry about maybe some things like, let's say, queen e2, putting a little more pressure on, then maybe knight d2. And it seems like white can muster up a bit of force there. So I think you want to be careful with a move like this.
It's definitely ambitious. I'm guessing that they're looking to maybe try to get their knight into c5, but we could always chop that. And like you said, to reinforce your plan, queen over to e2, start hitting that pawn. Like even if black tries to defend it at some point, once we have the knight back, we could plug the hole. Like say black looks to defend this way, we could always just block it with our knight. So yeah, that d4. The other thing is, I think they just gave white a plan. Like you were mentioning, in these positions, sometimes it could be hard to come up with a plan, so you're just kind of trying to put your pieces onto their best square. But now that this pawn's on c4, it's like white probably has a direct plan now to try to win it.
Definitely.
Aiden, we have not looked at your game. I'll get that into the queue.
Okay, so black does, manage to land their knight here, putting some pressure on e4. But okay, let's see how this goes. Okay, so white's main focus is on the king side and not so much on that c4 pawn. So that's interesting too. Definitely makes some sense. So that goes interesting. So yeah, it looks like black has resorted to some tactics here to just make sure that the knight doesn't escape if it does capture here. Or I mean, white is resorting to some tactics. So it's a kind of a clever idea here. Okay, so bishop a6. So that's probably the best moment to talk about.
Yep, because I mean that comes back to c pawns dropping. So the solid position looking for white here. And
yeah. So at this point, probably just need to do something about your knight being under attack there. So I have to think a little bit more closely about what you need to do, but maybe moving your knight back it's not a move you're excited to play, but at this point, probably it's best. Yeah, knight takes g3 is interesting to think about, but I'm worried that after queen g4, your knight's getting trapped here.
Yeah, it looks like a problem.
I wonder if black could try something like knight e4 with some funny business, something like f5 coming up.
On these type of games, looking at it, it kind of feels like once they got out of their opening prep, things kind of just collapsed, which definitely happens.
Yeah, it can be a challenge to play these positions, but yeah, now this is definitely in white's favor here. So it looks like they're showing some good technique here just to get rid of some of black's active pieces, exchange a little bit, and regroup their pieces towards the king side here. That's interesting. Seems like maybe that's giving black a little bit too much credit here. It seems like maybe white could play, let's say, rook a5, capturing the pawn. But okay, let's see how it goes. Yeah, so as long as white kind of keeps black's counterplay under control here, white's going to be in good shape. Yeah, white's I'm worried that white's just overextending themselves just a tiny bit. Maybe it's nothing to really worry about, but with an extra piece here, if you could maybe get your knight in the game and then swing your rook over, like I feel like that would be the ideal situation for you. That way you can make the most out of your extra pieces here, or your extra knight, I should say. But let's see how this goes. Also looks good. Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe knight b3. Maybe you feel like this is a reasonable point to end, and then.
So looking at this position, yeah, I think those viewers at
I'm
home,
sorry.
yeah, I'm confident that 2200 could finish that out up a piece. So let's hop over to Aiden's game. He had a good tournament. He is in the K-9 section, was playing black in this game.
Okay, let's take a look.
They're able to get a result. I think Aiden overall had quite a good tournament, good showing, 1900 player. Not surprising to have a good showing in K-9 section.
All right, great. Let's take a look. So I know I can already read the opening moves here, and I'm seeing an opening that Sean and I are big fans of. So yeah, the Knight Orb Sicilian here.
There we go.
I was going to say Sean's gone into debt on Knight Orb all weekend.
Hey,
fantastic.
Went a little too long on the dragon one time, I think, as well. Listen, I get excited sometimes.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, so Aiden, my recommendation here would be to try to focus a little bit more on just some direct play with your pawns here. And black, in this specific variation, I think it's nice to gain this tempo on the bishop here, and then your light square bishop actually usually ends up taking like a slightly different course action than normal. The best thing you can do is play, I think, bishop d7 in these types of positions, because you want to make sure, number one, you keep e6 defended, because your opponent might have the option, like let's say if you play bishop b7, you have to be aware of captures like this, which can end up getting two pawns and a rook for two minor pieces. And sometimes black's pawn structure afterwards gives them a worse position just because they're a little bit weaker that way. And yeah, that can be one option that white looks for. So if you put your bishop on d7, you help protect this square. And then let's say white castles, your bishop on d7 also is going to help serve an extra purpose here of controlling some squares on the queen side. You might push, let's say, b4 at some point. I'm not saying this is the best move currently, but you know, if white were to retreat, let's say to e2, for example, then you start to play a5, you play a4 potentially, and this bishop's actually really helpful here, giving you a really good play. The only reason I wouldn't do b4 instantly, potentially, is just, actually even this move maybe is still good for, potentially still good for black here. I mean, you have maybe just queen a5. So yeah, it could be the case that I think the bishop on d7 just gives you really good play here. So it's specific to this variation where they put their bishop on c4, especially if they're castling queenside. If they're going for this kind of setup, then it's really good to have this here. And you may also be able to play knight c6 to just trade these knights and then focus on advancing your queenside pawns afterwards. And that gives black good counterplay. So let's go back to the game though. Okay, so they retreated. You played bishop b5. Sorry, you played b5 here. They castled queenside, so it takes, yeah, it's kind of going along this path that we were kind of talking about here. Yeah, this is another situation where you just want to be aware of bishop b6. It's not guaranteed to be strong or anything, but it's just a good move to kind of have on your radar. They play h4. Yeah, sensible. And you play knight c5. So it makes a lot of, yeah, I like what you're doing here. If you could play, let's say, b4, maybe combine it with bishop b7 and start pushing your a pawn. Seems like you have potentially a good plan here. From their point of view, maybe g4 could have been a little bit more direct by playing, like trying to knock this knight away first. So they play it now. And then you go bishop d7. Yeah, so eventually, you know, it seems like you've you've gotten this good setup here. I like what you're doing. If you manage to play a5, a4, then it looks like you're in good shape. Okay, so white takes. Yeah, this is certainly. I mean, I could certainly see why they would want to capture it because that pawn's cramping their queen side, but there is risk involved with taking it too. So they're gonna face this open b file. They're walking into this move with a tempo now. So it's a sacrifice, but it's certainly like very potentially dangerous for white. Although it's not easy to suggest a better option. Perhaps it's just one of those positions where you have to kind of throw caution to the wind as white and just try to checkmate black, basically. Something like h5 or g5 and just push your attack. It's like kind of a killer be killed type of opening here.
Yeah, we've mentioned that on stream earlier. When you castle opposite sides, it's definitely a lot of times whose attack gets off first. And as well, just mentioned, the queen takes b5, but like definitely, queen takes b4 definitely is inviting that a5, a4 push.
Yeah. So
looks scary to face. I'm not sure I would have had the confidence to do queen takes b4.
It looks
Yes.
scary.
Yeah, so in the game, it looks like black goes for rook fb8. I would be tempted also by rook fc8 because you set up knight e4 ideas with this bishop being loose here. So certainly it looks like potentially good to put your rook here, but I just don't know if it has like any direct threats you're creating here. And I like the idea of just kind of creating this battery here with the queen.
Aiden is actually saying he liked d5 here.
Oh, he liked d5. Okay.
I don't like it.
It's interesting. What would his follow-up be? Let's say if white takes and just maybe goes back to d3. It seems like a normal response. I'm assuming he wants maybe to take back like this.
That would be what I would probably think. But he's saying that, yeah, no, white gets to attack on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I wonder if they could kind of play g5 a little early here too. But okay, I think
e4,
here, let's go back.
d5, e5. Oh, okay.
What's he saying?
Was saying e4, d5, e5. So.
Oh, maybe here.
Or, I think there might have been something.
A different point.
Might have been
d5 at a different
first,
point.
Oh.
d5, or was it d5 takes?
Oh, then e5. That's interesting. Yeah, I think with black, if this is what you're going for, it's best to.
But I think was maybe the idea of looking at this, not white has this move.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, now black's. Yeah. So I think probably the course of action in the game was a little better. So good job. So rook b8. Yep. Okay, so you trade now d5. Interesting. Oh yeah. So you're hitting the g3 rook.
I like it.
Yeah, nice move. Yeah, and at this point, black's definitely in great shape here.
I don't see how white really is going to be able to break through on the king side.
Yeah, queen b6 is a nice little touch here because you stop them from capturing. You have queen b2, so I have to admit, with black here, I mean, if white plays h5, I mean, I'm seeing red. I'm going to go for the attack here, and that's what you do. So that looks great. No need to kind of be shy about your attack. Like, there's still a move or two away from creating some serious threats. So you can be ambitious here, and yeah, it looks great. So they go b3. You take. Yeah, this is looking very nice for you. You got this open c file, and you go ahead and you just play rook c8 right away. Certainly has to be a good move. You could even entertain ideas like certain sacrifices here potentially, but probably it's not needed. I wonder also, you might even have stuff like knight e4 just as a kind of interesting idea, maybe setting up like rook c8, for example. So there might be other forceful ways you could go about trying to use the c file, but you're in a great position here and doing very well. I got to reload it, but yeah, you're doing great here. And now you play knight e4, so it's more or less the same, and this is just incredibly strong also.
Yep, so
Yeah, so a knight.
rook.
Yeah. So you go for the queen trade. That's fine. I think actually probably white. There's probably some way to take advantage of just this weak king, and I wonder what you could try here. Maybe something like queen f2, for instance. Trying to get to c2 here. It just feels like you have such well-placed pieces. You're got such a good position, and you're up a rook. Seems like there's maybe a forced win here somehow, but queen c5, if you don't see a forced win, just making the game simpler seems also like a very good option. So they elect not to trade immediately, but this is gonna lead into a couple more exchanges here. Yeah, you take and they resign. So nice game, definitely.
Very nice.
Fair result there. Definitely just simplified into easy one. Good games.
Makes sense.
I think that's it for viewer games, unless anybody has a quick buzzer beater at the end before we call it a day. A lot of fun. There's definitely still more work to be done, not on our end. Now everything is in the hands of US Chess and ICC, that you're going to analyze all the games to see who qualifies and goes on to compete in June 12th and 13th. Next on the plate is May 8th through 9th. That will be the lower sections, the K6, 5, 3, and 1. Same thing, there'll be qualifiers going on. As for ourselves, throughout the week we've been playing arenas at night. We're going to look to build up our schedule, add some day shows as well. And on the weekends, we'll probably be playing Bughouse, follower games, subscriber games. We'll continue to look to do these events. They're a lot of fun. So it's definitely good stuff. Oh, and Aiden. Oh, wow. So not a surprise. Aiden at 1941, it looks like. Will also might look to play in the K6 section. So that means definitely on the climb with a rating like that and the chess you played. So good job, Aiden. And thanks, Oski, for the kind words. Thanks, everybody, for sticking around. Got 5.5 out of 6. That's still a solid result. Oh, and you still have the K6 to play, so good luck in that. I'll let my co-host give off any final signings before we call it a day. Again, unless somebody hops in with one more game.
Well, definitely had a lot of fun covering the event and definitely enjoyed those games. Like to finish with a night orf, so that's always fun. But yeah, awesome that we got these players playing up who are, these talented up and comers who will hopefully continue to have some great results. And looking forward to seeing everybody back here soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to maybe getting a chance to do some more potential events like this and see some of the future tournaments. And good luck to everyone who we've seen today. And thanks for sharing your games. That's pretty much all I wanted to add on there.
Awesome. So thanks, everybody. We're going to toss a raid towards Antti, who a really fun guy. We actually had the pleasure to play against him. Might see if we'll play against him again in the States Chess Cup, which should be coming up soon. That'll probably be the next event as a team that we compete in. So we'll keep our eye open for that. Thanks again, everybody, and let's go raid Canty.